the greatest club in the universe. I'm so happy to have us all back. If I could please have Georgia Ferrell up here. She's going to give our inspirational moment and pledge. I got distracted talking to everyone, so sorry I started a minute late. That was your minute.
Okay, done. As I am preparing for my youngest to leave for college in 5 weeks from today, I've been thinking a lot about gratitude and about being in the present moment. So I want to take a moment to be grateful for each and every one of you who are here today, because all of us are what makes life worth living, right? All of what we're doing, how we interact with one another. So I have a quote, and my quote is for each of you and me to think about our own magnificence and how we share that with others. It's a quote from Marianne Williamson, if some of you, I'm sure, have already heard it. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It's our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, love you, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that others won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give others permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Thank you all for showing that presence to me and liberating me too. Thanks.
And we'll do the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Georgia. And Rainier, would you like to come up here and introduce the visiting Rotarians and guests? I saw quite a few out there.
Oh yes, I do remember the rules. Remember, per Natalie Bailey's instructions, we say hi to our guests of Rotarians and we clap for... No, yeah, even I can get backwards. So we say hi to our visiting Rotarians and we clap for our guests. Right, see? Try your best. Okay, first we have from Texas A&M, he's a professor. We have Chuck Herman. Hi, Chuck. I'll take it. And from Phoenix, Arizona, we have Patricia Darling. Hi, Patricia. We have also from, he is a cardiac surgeon from the Rotary Club of Tucson, Bert Strug. All right. And finally, we have a past president and current membership chair from the Patuxent, Maryland Club in Columbia, Sandy Harriman. Sandy. And do we have any other guests? Okay. Please, Suzanne.
President Natalie, fellow Rotarians and guests, I have a special guest, Sheridan Sinclair Bell.
Hello, President Natalie. Hello, Rainier. Fellow Rotarians and guests, I want to introduce Chris Jones, who is my special guest today. And while I'm up, I'm going to say hi to my beautiful wife, Susan, who's with us today.
President Natalie and fellow Rotarians, I'd like to introduce my special guest, Shannon Pavel.
President Natalie and Rotarians and guests, Today I have a double whammy. Bert is also my guest, in addition to having been a visiting Rotarian.
President Natalie, fellow Rotarians, I'd like to introduce my special guest, Jean Organ, and Bill Brown.
Madam President and fellow Rotarians and guests, let me introduce my special guest today, Aliona Isakawa. She is an artist and art couture designer, and she teaches fashion design in Liberty University in Virginia.
Anyone else? Right. Oh, Suzanne.
Our guest speaker today is Michael Lovette-Colyer, and he's here from USD, and we're going to learn a lot. Thank you so much for being here.
Sorry, I forgot my other guest, Asante. And I can never say his last name, so I'm just not going to. But he'll be speaking to us.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Sure. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so we're in trouble because we don't have any red badgers here today. What that means is sponsors, get them here. I thought we had one, but Brian Lopez is no longer a red badger. I know. So that brings us to my 100 years ago. I think I mentioned this last time. I'm trying to still do something kind of fun, like the National Day, but bring it to the 100-year celebration. So, without further ado, in April 1925, Scott F. Fitzgerald introduced the world to The Great Gatsby, a glittering story of elegance, parties, passion, and mystery. Fast forward 100 years, and our club has our very own Gatsby. Though instead of West Egg, they light up our meetings with their love of the arts, movies, and a legendary Gatsby Bash of their own that I have personally attended and can confirm is an outrageously terrific time. In honor of 100 years of Gatsby and the artful sparkle you bring to our Rotary family, we raise a metaphorical champagne glass to the great Doug St. Dennis. Woo! Hey Doug, come up here, I have something for you. Yeah, come here. Come on up here. I have a little something to, oh my goodness, to honor you with. Wait, there's one more thing that you're going to love. What do you...
Oh, there we go.
You can keep that till I need it for the Focus Gala. One other little special thing I want to do is we have some membership anniversaries for July. I'm not going to have you guys come up here, but I do want to acknowledge the people who are here, and I'm really sorry if you snuck in here without RSVPing before. But Julie Lowell is celebrating her 2 years of membership. Yeah, we can clap. I got Doug St. Dennis on this list again, celebrating 8 years of membership with Coronado Rotary. Chris Cays at 10 years. Did you know that? And this one is very cool. John Matthews, 37 years in Rotary. It wasn't Coronado Rotary the whole time, but we'll still take it. So we did a few things this week, a lot of beach-related activities. But let's see, what slide do I have up here? Oh yes, I did go to the Optimist Club and gave them a check for losing in lawn bowling. They were very nice to me at their meeting. They did make fun of me quite a bit, and I reminded them that I was not here for lawn bowling, but next year I will be, and then we will win. We had a very successful beach cleanup. There were 29 Rotarians and 8 of the exchange students. Look at that big crew. When I was at the beach that day, I had 2 different people come up to me to ask what was going on. And when I told them it was a Rotary party, they said, oh my gosh, I saw the Rotarians in their vests cleaning up the beach today. And they were just really excited to tell me that. And so I thank you all for being there. And that brings us to the big Saturday festivity, which was the Rotary 100 Beach Party. Thank you guys for being there. There's quite a few slides. We had an excellent time, and I want to thank Josie and Johnny Cushing. They got all the food. John McCann and Grant McCann got the firewood. Rick Wilcoxon brought tables and a cornhole set. Luann got all the utensils and plates. Ann Stockdale helped me with the cornhole tournament. Jane Simmerell helped organize the food. Mark Fleming brought inflatables. Brittany brought ice. Ricky helped me set up. But mostly, my mom was there the entire time with me for 15 hours at the beach. So, round of applause. Past President Mom. Some of our highlights included David Lowenberg and Howard Summers and I played a very competitive volleyball game. Not sure who won that. Grant and John McCann won the cornhole tournament. David accidentally grilled the grand prize, which was 12 ears of corn. The exchange students exchanged their Rotary country banners and then made s'mores for their first time ever. I guess that's just a U.S. thing. And Mayor Duncan almost burned the island down with the massive fire we built at the end of the night. I think there's probably a picture. Yeah, it got huge. We gave out the 100 hats to all the Rotarians who were there, but today, officially, everyone else gets them. So if you didn't grab them on the way in, please grab your hat on the way out. Okay, we have some upcoming events. I'm just going to leave the slide up there because you guys can read, but I did allow for one non-Rotary announcement each week. Virginia Bear, would you like to come up?
Yes, ma'am.
And let us know what this announcement means to you financially.
Okay, everybody on your tables, we have London calling you. Can you not hear me? All right, okay.
Okay. We have London calling you on your tables. Hopefully everybody got some. Maybe you didn't. Oh, you did. Okay. London Calling is a fashion show that St. Madeleine Sophie Center does every year to support those people with different abilities. People who are physically disabled, people who are intellectually impaired. St. Madeleine Sophie Center is out in El Cajon, and I want to thank all the Rotarians for supporting us. We were supported last year. I want to invite you to the fashion show. We do have a typical fashion show with typical models walking the runway in beautiful fashions from Macy's. And then we have clients of St. Madeleine's who also come down the runway, maybe in their wheelchair, maybe with their walker, or strutting their stuff, in probably more comfortable casual attire. But it's well attended. It's at the Bayfront, the Hilton Bayfront, just across the bridge. Unfortunately, it's also on August 2nd, which is the Focus event, but that's at night. And I'll go to the Focus event with Suzanne Manuel or you if we can sit at your table, if you guys will consider coming to this. And lastly, if you can't manage a ticket, I do have a table. I'm happy to buy another one. And please see me. Take one of these if you're even slightly interested and give me a call. Thank you.
Thank you, Virginia. All right, next up we have Abigail. Would you like to come join me up here? Abigail was the recipient of the Service Above Self Award, and she's going to introduce herself and tell us a little bit about her future.
Hi, Hi, yes, my name's Abigail Pearson, and I just graduated from Coronado High School this year, where I was a part of the Costa Dance Conservatory. I was also a member of the Interact Club and Emerald Keepers and a lot of other things, so you may have seen my face around the island before. This upcoming year, I will be attending Chapman University in the fall in Orange County, and I'll be double majoring in dance and health science there, and I will also be a part of the honors program there. So I'm very excited for that, and long-term goals, I hopefully want to go into physical therapy eventually. Yeah, that's a little about me.
So happy to have you. Thank you so much, Abigail. All right, we have a couple other presentations. I would like to have Chris Cays, Debbie McBride, and Suzanne Popp up here. They're going to give us a little rundown of what they did for the past 2 weeks for our Rotary Club.
I'll just start. When Karen asked me to host a couple of exchange students, I immediately said yes, because I think it's the best way to travel the world without even leaving your house. And you get to re-experience those 15, 16-year-old days where kids bring in a lot of sand, they push the limits, you give them an inch, they take a little bit more. But it's so rewarding, and the boys that I had, one Noah from Canada and Emile from France, were just amazing and sweet and polite. And that's about it for me.
So I hosted 2 young men, one from Germany and one from Bulgaria. They were absolutely fantastic. They came in and they really want to know what America is all about. They want to go to Costco. They want to go to Chick-fil-A and In-N-Out. They've seen all these things on social media. They want to know about our school system. They want to know about our taxes, about HOA fees, everything you can imagine. They ask questions. We had so much fun. One of my daughters, who lives in New York, was in town the entire time they were here, so she interacted with them. Another daughter who lives over in Kensington was like, hey, when can I come over? Are the boys going to be there for dinner? Can we, because it was fun sitting around the table at dinner, talking with them about their lives in their different countries and how it's different from the U.S. We made a great connection, and I was really sad to see them go on Sunday. I would recommend it to any of you to open up your homes to these kids, because they are wonderful. It gives you a great perspective on our world, and I think it helps us make connections to people, and that they can understand us and our country and our lives. So anyway, a fantastic experience. Chris.
So actually, the other 2 host moms did a great recap, and this is to add to it, my big takeaway, and this is our 4th time our family has hosted. We had 4 girls with us, and it was really fun having all 4 of the girls. We had Daria from Romania, we had Emma from Slovakia, we had Eugenia from Italy, and then we had, who am I missing? Oh, Ella from the Czech Republic, and they were all so gracious, so kind, so thoughtful, so helpful. Just, they were curious, and they were outgoing, and they were so appreciative every single day. These girls, and also, they were so much fun. It just reminds you of when your kids would come home with a whole posse of friends and just livened up your household. And I did really miss them when they went. They all checked in on me on WhatsApp after they got back to their homes. And I said, well, breakfast was a bit lonely and too quiet. So anyway, they also, my big takeaway is, like Debbie was saying, their knowledge of American culture. It's amazing. Literally, I had to look up exactly where Slovakia and Romania was. And interestingly enough, they border on Ukraine, so you can imagine what interesting conversations we had for 2 weeks about the world situation. They're very knowledgeable about geopolitics and diplomacy, much more so than most Americans. Anyway, and a lot of their knowledge comes from TikTok, which I don't have. I mean, the first night they got there, they wanted to know, they want to go, like she said, Costco, Target. They couldn't wait to go to Target. They knew all about Chick-fil-A, In-N-Out, Raising Cane. I didn't even know about it. I'm a little bit. So these people keep you current, and this is our outreach. Also, they shared a lot of their love of cooking and food. They do love junk food here. They love raw cookie dough. They love anything sweet, Sour Patch Kids, peanut butter M&Ms. I went through copious amounts of it. So, and peanut butter. So, anyway, what did they think about Coronado, San Diego, and America? It was really interesting to me. Number one, we live in paradise. They said, it's just like the movies, but better. Okay, and of course, they came here, so, you know, we did have to tell them not everywhere is like this, because it is the best in the universe. So, also, they were amazed at how friendly and helpful and kind everybody is. Like, anywhere we would go, people say, oh, do you want us to take your pictures? One time, we were walking through the La Valencia Hotel because we hit every single site in San Diego you can imagine. And they love French fries with lots of ketchup. Ketchup is, they put ketchup on everything. And so somebody said, kind of under their breath to me, oh, those French fries look so good. And the gentleman heard her. And he says, hey, you want one? You can have one. And he just picked it up like this. And she was like so shocked. And then when we were walking away, she said, did you know him? And I mean, everywhere. They say nobody in their countries where they're from really talks, like they would never do something like that. And they were really, really impressed with how friendly and how helpful and kind, at least the people they had contact with in San Diego and the places they visited in LA were. So that's, you know, something to say thank you to all of you for. They really enjoyed it. Also, all the choices. America has so many choices. They don't see food like we have. They go to stores. They can't believe it. They also said, anything you want to have for food is already made. There, they need the eggs, the milk, the butter, the flour. Nothing comes already prepared for a lot of them. They were just blown away by that. And I think these are things that we don't think about, but they certainly did. Funny things in Coronado, they thought the Star-Spangled Banner was kind of like the call to prayer in many Muslim countries, because where I am on Glorieta, they hear at 8 a.m. every day the Star-Spangled Banner. And sometimes you can hear it, we had some in our back house from North Island. And it hit me one morning when I was listening to it. They probably think everywhere in America plays a stand-up Star-Spangled Banner. And so I brought it up at breakfast, and they said, yeah, everywhere in America they play the Star-Spangled Banner. I said, no, that's just because that's where we live with a lot of military in our town. So they were amazed by that. They wanted to know because they came 4th of July. They said, do you guys always have parties like this? They couldn't believe all the parties and the flow. Oh, and then our circumnavigation, we had a small party for that. They said, oh my gosh, your entire town is out riding bikes right now. So, except us. So, and then the American movie theater experience, they love that. And then also wearing shoes in the house. That's a huge no-no in all their countries. You can imagine 4 girls. They all had, I think their suitcases were all shoes. We had so many shoes at the front and back door for the entire week. So don't wear shoes. Okay, okay. And the last thing, these teenagers are awe-inspiring. And this is why Rotarians do it. And for anybody, when I'm not cut off and get the hook, you have to read, I have WhatsApp notes from all the parents. They are the most moving, it makes me cry, testimonials to what all of you Rotarians raise money for. The gratitude and what it meant to these kids and their parents. what you all offered them, and the Lowenbergs, the Stricklands, and the Tylers, who else pitched in? The Canoes, to give them the experience, and Karen Strabla, number one. She does an amazing job. I just want to thank all of you people for what you do to really bring Rotary's mission of building peace and understanding to the world, because this is how we do it, one person at a time. So thank you.
Asante, would you like to come up here? Thank you guys so much for hosting them. We will most likely be doing a youth exchange program again next summer, so if anyone is interested in having those great experiences, please see Debbie or Karen Strabla. And last but not least, we have Asante here to give us an update on his water polo project. We did contribute to his project last year, so this is technically a Rotary announcement. Asante, you have about 3 minutes to get us up to speed.
All right, 3 minutes, we can make it happen. Hey everybody, good afternoon. My name is Asante, Coronado native, born and raised, high school and all the above. Water polo player, played in high school, played in college, got a chance to go on and play professionally in Brazil and throughout Europe. And I had this crazy idea to go back to my father's homeland, West Africa, Ghana, to start the first water polo team in Ghana. It was pretty cool because on every team that I've been on, I've been, really just the most handsome player on every team with this great hair. And I said, how cool would it be to have a team of more handsome athletes, boys and girls with great hair? So I said, let me go back to the source in Africa and start a program where we can see, more diversity, more Africans, more African Americans in the sport, because also through statistics, African Americans suffer a high drowning rate. So I said, all right, it's great for me to play water polo and get the sport, but it's also great to teach a life-saving skill through this game. So while doing that in Ghana, I was able to do the same thing coming back home. And with a lot of these kids that I've been working with, Dr. Popp knows, Natalie knows, even Dr. Popp made a trip to come out to see Ghana and see the team that I'm working with. A lot of the kids, just to make a long story short, they don't come from Coronado. We don't have this movie setting life. Life is really tough for them. And I wanted to make it a point where I don't showcase their struggles, their troubles, their environments. My whole thing is to exploit the joy that they have been receiving when learning how to swim and playing water polo. And just in the past year, these are some of the local programs that I've done. It's gotten a lot of attention. We were able to even get 100 bicycles donated to these kids from the Sharp Injury Prevention District in San Diego. I got a lot of slides where you can just pop, 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 tap, tap through. Some people are very afraid of swimming, not just kids, but also adults. And there's a lot of trauma in the African, even Black community on getting into water. So I had this crazy idea to create this event where we teach people how to just float while a sound bath is happening in an indoor heated pool. And that's actually been a fundraiser. We have one coming up next Friday on World Drowning Prevention Day. So some of these slides are just getting people involved in the water, floating while a sound healer is playing some relaxing meditation sounds. And then this is my group from Ghana. Go back for one hot second. My group from Ghana. 2 years ago, we got invited to a youth, pretty much Olympic tournament in Italy. We had them training for a whole year. We got them their passports because they don't know anything about what year they were born on. I say, when's your birthday? They said I was born on Wednesday. I said, no, what year were you born on? So we had to do all these things. And then on the day we were supposed to travel, the Italian embassy denied everybody's visa. Yeah, listen, that's a very soft reaction. So how it was that day. They're all very sad. So fast forward, we were able to do a trip to go to South Africa. And all those kids that were denied their visas were able to get on a plane for the first time, travel for the first time, and even have some fun traveling through South Africa. And even though we won 2 out of our 3 games, first international victories, the highlight of this trip was riding the escalator for these kids. Not the plane, just the escalator. All right, kids, whatever. So these are some of the kids that I work with here too. We have our league every year, January through April. And what I've been doing through Dr. Popp's assistance and even reaching out to Rotary is sharing the story, sharing the message, getting people involved and interested to help us make more trips happen, get them the essential resources they need to keep swimming like hair caps for this beautiful hair that we have, and goggles and all those things just to really promote this idea of more diversity in the water. And who knows, maybe have this crazy idea of seeing a team in the Olympics one day and started by a Coronado guy. I don't know. It's crazy dreams we could have happen here. But been able to meet a lot of cool people, some Olympians. Stevie Wonder also gave me a shout out. I don't know if we passed that, and here's some cute pictures there. Yeah, I think that's all I gotta say about that. If anyone's interested in wanting to be a part of it and maybe having some of those kids come here and train in the same pool that we've got right here in Coronado, that'd be incredible. Because our long-term goal is to definitely build our own pool out there where you can come by and see all the products of what you can help us out and create. So I think I'm at 2 minutes and 58 seconds.
Part of the job here. All right, Jeanmarie Bond, would you like to introduce our speaker? I do have one more announcement. If you did not get your low-tide t-shirt, see Stephanie after the meeting. She has them all. All right, thank you.
Well, I first learned about our speaker today in the May 9th issue of the San Diego Union Tribune in a feature story entitled Un-Americano, San Diego Catholics Celebrate Pontiff and His Love of Tithes. In that article, our speaker was quoted as saying, "The Pope's new name carries incredible significance." Well, I did a little more research and I found out that Michael Lovette-Colyer is a PhD. He's the Vice President for Mission Integration at USD. He's also a lecturer in theology and religious studies. He has his PhD from USD in leadership studies, his MBA from Santa Clara, his Master of Divinity from the Jesuit School of Theology, and a BS and a BA in finance from John Carroll. So one might say he's a little bit of an overachiever. But since a new pope was selected for us by the Catholic Church just this last spring, I thought it would be interesting for all of us to learn a little bit more about the papacy, and as somewhat of an expert in this subject, I'd like to welcome Michael Lovette-Colyer to speak to us today.
Thank you so much for the invitation, the opportunity to be here. I wish I could have gone before Ashante, so I wouldn't sound less interesting, but I'm really delighted to be with you all. I'm not a Rotarian, but I have the highest respect and admiration for Rotary. I know that you do wonderful things to make the world a better place, so it really is an honor to be with you. I've worked at USD for almost 20 years. USD is a wonderful place. Who here has been to campus, to USD campus? Okay, good. And if you haven't, raise your hand. All right, see me afterwards. I want to host you. Everybody's always welcome. We'd love to have you there. So before I start to talk a little bit about Pope Leo, I'd just like to hear, what do we know about him? What's most interesting about Pope Leo?
White Sox fan. American.
He's a White Sox fan, he's American. What else? He went to Villanova University, yeah.
Bears fan.
He's a Bears fan, okay. He's international but American. Yeah, he's American and more, if you will. Yeah, great. He's fluent in Italian. If you saw his first address from St. Peter's balcony, it was really impressive. In fact, I hear one of the reasons that he was selected is because his Italian is so good. You have to be able to speak really good Italian to be the Pope. The fact that he's a White Sox fan, there's a great joke, that we were hoping, many people in the Catholic community were hoping that the new Pope would be similar to Pope Francis in having a particular love of and affection for those who are downtrodden or suffering in any way. Well, the fact that he's a White Sox fan proves that's the case. So most people know that he's an American, and that is significant because he's the first American Pope ever. In fact, the conventional wisdom always was that there would never be an American Pope. So the fact that he is an American is really remarkable, although he's an American in a uniquely American way. However, I'd like to just suggest that that's not the most potentially consequential thing about Pope Leo. There's something else about his background that potentially will be the most consequential to his papacy. And I'm going to save that for the end, but if you could advance the slide. So before we get into Leo, I think it's helpful to just rewind the clock a little bit about how we got to it. Because at the start of this year, when we hit 2025, I certainly wouldn't have anticipated that Pope Francis would die and that we would go through the process of a conclave and have a new Pope. Now, of course, Francis was 88 years old, so it's not a total shock. But it really is. We lived through a remarkable period of history for those of us who are sort of invested deeply in the Catholic Church and the Catholic community. So if you remember, it was really February 14th, Valentine's Day, that we heard the news that Francis had been admitted to the hospital. And the news right away was that it was related to his lungs. If you know much about Francis, right away that's serious, because when he was a young man, when he was 21, he had a part of one of his lungs removed. And so the word that there was a problem with pneumonia with his lungs was very worrisome right away. And then as he stayed in the hospital, we heard that it was quite serious, that he suffered some complex pneumonia, and there was a time that many of us thought that he would pass away. And then remarkably he didn't, and he came out of the hospital. And it was a real source of joy and excitement for many of us. And of course this all coincided with the Catholic and the Christian observance of Lent. And so it was just about at the end of Lent that he was released from the hospital. He was able to make a public appearance on April 6th. And then on Easter Sunday, he was able to give a blessing. The very next day, he passed away. The very next day. So for those of us, who are really paying attention, our celebration of Easter and that opportunity to really be joyful was tempered. And at the same time, what appropriate time when we celebrate the new life that Easter really is all about. So Pope Francis dies on April 21st. Next slide. So that led the cardinals to move into high gear. How many here in the room have seen the movie Conclave? Okay. Now you come up and do the presentation. You know what happens next. Right away after the Pope dies, there is a declaration that the seat of the papacy is vacant, and then they have to get busy organizing. The dean of the College of Cardinals, in other words, the oldest cardinal, is in charge during that period of time. And his first task is to select the starting date of the conclave, which has to be some days out because cardinals have to come from all over the world to Rome to take part. So on the 27th, we learned that the conclave would start on May 7th. And it was really just one day later, if you remember, that the white smoke appeared and that Leo was announced as the new pope. Now, I have two interesting stories about that moment in time. So, right as the conclave started, on May 7th, the good folks at USD's Public Affairs Office, they reach out to the media and they say, do you want somebody who knows something about this to come talk? And so I was asked to go on Fox 5, the morning show. Anybody here watch that? If you saw me, I apologize. Anyways, so I was on there on that Wednesday, May 7th, and they were asking me questions. The host's name was Raul, I remember that. Forget the other person's name. But at the end of the conversation, Raul said to me, when will we know? And I said with 1,000% confidence, we'll know by Friday. And then as I was leaving, I thought, I undershot that. We're gonna know sooner. That was just my gut instinct. And part of the reason I said Friday is I had done a little bit of research and how long did it take for us to get Francis when he was elected through the papacy, and how about Benedict and John Paul II. So I had done some investigation to assume that would be the case, but there was just something I thought, no, it's going to need to be quicker. Anybody have a sense of why that might have been? Why it was pretty quick? I'm testing your knowledge like I like to do for most. No idea? The reason that I thought it would be quicker, and that it probably was, is that Francis was the Pope for 12 years. 12 years. Francis served as Pope. And so during that 12-year period, he had the chance to appoint 75% of the cardinals who would select his successor. So there would, generally speaking, be somewhat of a consensus or a similarity in the perspective of those 75% of the people. That's why I was thinking. So anyways, they said, when will it be? I said, Friday, and then I regretted it immediately. So the very next day, that Thursday, I was getting ready to go to work, and I said, I better wear a suit, because there's a chance that somebody's going to want me to go back on TV. And sure enough, that's what happened. And so on that Thursday, I was in my office working, and I got a call from Fox 5, the producer. And they said, would you be willing to call in to talk to Raul and the co-host? And I said, okay, but why? And they said, well, we've seen white smoke. I didn't know that. So I would be happy to. Let me just collect my thoughts. So I call in, and I thought it was going to be what happens next. But it turns out it was one of those things where Raul and his co-hosts were trying to fill airtime. So they wanted me to stay on the phone from the time they saw the smoke and they got me on the phone until the new Pope was announced. And so there were multiple commercial breaks where I said, are you sure you still want me? Because I had nothing else to say. We basically talked about everything related to the movie Conclave. I said, I don't know, do you really want me to say? He said, please don't hang up, please don't hang up. This is a true story. My phone actually died. I'm not sad about that. But then I went and I plugged it back sure enough, they called me back. And so now we're getting the announcement who it's going to be. And of course, I'm looking at my phone while they're talking to me. Who do you think it is? Who do you think it is? It's like, it's an American? That's impossible. It must be a typo. And Raul and whoever else it is like, it's an American. What do you have to say about that, Dr. Lovette-Colyer? Give me 1 second. I didn't know. Nobody knew. Nobody expected that Robert Prevost would be elected as our next pope. It was really a shock. Partly because he was American, but also because he wasn't, before the conclave, one of those people that others were identifying as potentials. However, if you saw the movie Conclave, you know that if you think you might want to be a pope, you'll never be the pope. It's almost always a surprise. It's the person who doesn't seek the office that the cardinals tend to identify as the appropriate person to assume that leadership role. So while I was Googling, who he was, I was pulling everything up, and the first thing was, oh, it's the American, it's Robert Prevost. Interesting, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. But then the very next thing that popped up was, what's his name going to be? What's his name? And that was a big part of what I was asked to speak about today, and I will in one moment. So next slide, please. So what do we know about Prevost, or now Pope Leo? One of the most interesting things, not the most consequential, besides the fact that he's American. I'm still saving that as the spoiler for the end, like the Conclave movie. But he's 69 years old. 69 is relatively young, right? I knew my audience there, right? He's still a puppy. Francis was 78 when he was elected. So Leo being 69 tells us that very likely he'll have 15 years as the Pope. He'll have an opportunity to guide and to shape the Catholic Church for a good long period of time, which is a signal that the cardinals have a lot of faith in it, a lot of trust. Sometimes when there isn't a clear person that they trust to take that leadership, they'll select a transitional pope, somebody who's older, who very likely won't be in office that long. The fact that he's 69, he has an enormous opportunity to provide the direction of the Catholic Church into the future. Of course, we know he's American. He grew up on the south side of Chicago. I didn't know he was a Bears fan, but I believe him. That makes sense. But he's also Peruvian to that point. He lived in Peru for 20 years. And in addition to that experience, he was the head of the Augustinian order, which is an order of Catholic priests, and I'll say a word about that in a moment. And when you're the head of an international order, you have to travel all over the world, which he did. So he lived in Peru for 20 years, and he traveled all over the world for 12 years as the head of the order. And then for the previous 2 years prior to becoming Pope, he was living in Rome, serving as the head or the prefect of the office for bishops. So his job for the last 2 years was to identify around the world who would be good to be the bishop of San Diego or of whatever, of Ghana, wherever you might be. So he had an enormous global perspective as well as local, if you will. So that's why he's an American in a uniquely American way, I think. So the Augustinian order is particularly notable here in San Diego in what way? In what way does the Augustinian order show up? Anybody know? St. Augustine High School. Yes, have a cookie, sir. There's more cookies. So St. Augustine High School, some of you might be familiar with, a wonderful all-boys Catholic school in South Park, is founded by the Augustinian order. So what is an order? So in the Catholic Church, there are a variety of orders, which are particular communities that are founded by or inspired by a particular person, an inspirational person. So the Augustinians trace their inspiration to St. Augustine. Pope Francis was a Jesuit. Jesuits traced their inspiration back to St. Ignatius of Loyola. And there are, of course, lots of orders of women religious as well. Maybe one of the most famous, for example, is the Missionaries of Charity. And they, of course, were founded by Mother Teresa. But there's all kinds of Sisters of Mercy, Sisters of Nazareth. My daughter goes to Nazareth School in Mission Valley. Sisters of Nazareth founded that. So religious orders are a particular way of being Catholic. One way to think about them is that all the different orders, as well as those who are not a part of an order, are ice cream. And the orders are particular flavors. So there's a particular style of the way they live their Catholic life, and a focus or a charism, we call it. So a particular spirit. For example, the Jesuits are well known for a commitment to education. That's why they often have colleges that some of you might be familiar with, like Marquette, which is great. Yeah. So the Jesuits are affiliated with education very often. There's Sisters of Charity with direct service to the poor. The Augustinians, their charism their special focus or the style, the way in which they live their Catholic Christian faith, is by trying to combine charity and love and learning. It's a beautiful inspiration, a charism, based on the life and the passion of St. Augustine himself. Does that make any sense? Is that clear? So in your parishes, if you go to Sacred Heart Parish here in Coronado, your parish priest is a diocesan priest. So who is it right now? That's right, Mike Murphy. So he's a part of the Diocese of San Diego. He's not part of an order. But there are lots of religious orders active here in San Diego. And occasionally they also do take responsibility for administering parish. The fact that Leo is a member of a religious order is really significant. And it was really significant that Francis was as well. They were the first two, Francis the first one and Leo the second one. So it's a really remarkable connection or piece of continuity there. The reason it's so remarkable, and this is getting at the most consequential potential thing about Leo, is that the way authority is exercised in religious orders is really different. Religious orders are much less hierarchical. The way it works is somebody's elected, not all that unlike Rotary probably, to be the president for a period of time, or in their case they would call it Superior General. It's more than 1 year. Yeah, that's your new title, Superior General. And so somebody's elected and they will do it on behalf of the community, for the larger community. And their job is to listen carefully to the needs of the community and then to make a decision about what would be best. It's much less of a top-down hierarchical model of authority and leadership than exists in the other parts of the Catholic Church. So the fact that Pope Francis led in a more consultative way is a reflection of the fact that he was a member of the Jesuits. We can expect that Pope Leo will lead in a similar way because that's been his experience as a member of the Augustinians. So we can expect that for sure. Okay, we can go to the next slide. I love that picture. There he is as a young man. At USD, we were founded by the diocese as well as this order of religious sisters called the Religious of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, a wonderful group of religious sisters. And they're still active on campus today. And I found out from one of them that there was an RSCJ nun who worked in Chicago where Leo went to graduate school, who served as his spiritual director. Isn't that amazing? So, spiritual director. So sort of somebody he would go to once a week or once a month to talk about his prayer life and how he was growing in his faith or not. So like, think of the secrets and the dirt she has on him. We talked a little about this. But I think that second to last bullet point there is really important, and that will be incredibly influential in how he exercises papacy. He's had this very unique background in that he's been a missionary, moving from Chicago to Peru. He's been a parish priest. He's been a teacher, a bishop, a cardinal. So he has a very well-rounded set of experiences. As somebody said, his undergraduate degree is from Villanova. There you go. Are you from Villanova?
I did close to Villanova.
Okay. Great. And it is graduate school in Chicago, where he had his spiritual director, my colleague, the RSCJ, and then he studied in Rome. This is actually, I think, the most interesting thing about our new Pope. As an undergrad and as a graduate student, he took classes not just with other priests, but with women and with lay people. So he's much more comfortable empowering women and lay people to take on important roles than priests before. Pope Benedict was a wonderful pope, but he didn't have that experience. John Paul II, amazing figure, transformational in history, but he didn't have that experience. Leo did. Leo knows what it's like to work in collaboration with men and women, some of whom are priests and nuns and some of whom are not. So I think we can expect that he will empower lay people more and more over his 15 plus years that he's in office. That, I think, will be the most consequential piece. The fact that he's American will fade away, I think. Okay, next slide. Here we see a picture of Francis and Leo. They both are members of religious orders. I already talked about that. They both have a love for Latin America. If you remember, if you were watching on the day that the white smoke came, that he spoke from St. Peter's balcony. Do you remember the first language he spoke in? Italian. First thing he said, peace be with you, which of course is echoing the words of Jesus, but more importantly, really speaking to the moment of the world that we're living in right now. But He gave most of that address in Italian, never spoke a word of English. He did transition to Spanish to greet the people that he worked with and that he loves in Peru. So it's clear that he has a deep affection for the people of Latin America. As a colleague of mine said, he's an American with a Latin American heart. I think that captures it really, really well. He definitely seems to be very much in alignment with the vision of Pope Francis, his predecessor. And so we can expect that his spirituality, his ecclesiology is a fancy word for his understanding of what the church is and what its purpose is. His pastoral priorities, these will probably be familiar and similar. In fact, Leo seems to be going out of his way to be very intentional about using some of the same language and emphasizing some of the same things that Francis did, really drawing a connection. But they're different in style, in personality. One of the things that was great about Pope Francis is that he was willing to be spontaneous. He was known for giving press conferences on the plane back. Whenever he traveled somewhere and the plane was going back to Rome, he would do an impromptu press conference with the press that was on the plane. And it must have driven his handlers wild because he wouldn't, screen questions. He would take questions and answer honestly. And a lot of times that, created some heartburn for people because it wasn't well scripted always. It was instant, kind of what was on Pope Francis's heart and mind. He was willing to share that. I suspect Pope Leo will be much more circumspect, much more cautious in his approach, which is not necessarily a difference in substance, but it's definitely a difference in style. We'll notice that. You may have noticed already that some people have said, well, Pope Leo hasn't really said anything all that interesting. And in some ways he hasn't. But I think that's what we can expect. He will exercise leadership in a very, careful and expert way, but in a way that draws less headlines at times than Francis did. And do I have one more slide? Oh yes, so his name, Pope Leo the 14th. When we heard that his name was Pope Leo the 14th, I almost fell over because he selected that name to honor the previous person who was Pope Leo, and it was Pope Leo the 13th. Pope Leo the 13th is a huge figure in the history of the Catholic Church. He lived in the late 1800s, early 1900s. The most significant thing about Pope Leo the 13th is that he's known as the father of modern Catholic social thought. He lived and was the Pope during the Industrial Revolution. And during that time, as people of history, as you probably know, workers were often treated in ways that were problematic, expected to work long hours in unsafe, undignified conditions, didn't have benefits. If they got hurt, they could be replaced, discarded very quickly. And Pope Leo the 13th raised concern about that and said this is inconsistent with the dignity of human beings as people who are created in the image of God. And he wrote a document there, the second bullet point from the bottom, known as Rerum Novarum. And basically that said that people have human dignity and they have to be treated that way, always, including when they're at work. And that really kicked off about 150 years of other reflection on what does the Catholic Christian faith have to say about the modern world in which we live. So the fact that Robert Prevost took the name Leo the 14th tells us that he's going to do something similar. Ask how the Catholic Christian faith might guide us as we negotiate the many challenges that we face in the modern world today, which is incredibly exciting. And as I mentioned, Leo the 13th, known as the father of Catholic social thought. If you go to the next slide, which is the last slide, there are these themes that are identified as essential to Catholic social thought. The left blue one where it says human dignity, that's the foundational. And again, I already said it, it's that conviction that all people are created in God's image and so have to be treated in a way that reflects that dignity. Next to that, though, to the right is solidarity, and that's a word that can be charged, because sometimes it's associated with unions and things like that, but that's not what it means here. What it means is that the human being is not just sacred, but also social. And that fundamentally we are built for relationships. That's why groups like Rotary are so cool, because it's a way of living out those relationships. And then if you drop down, family, community, and participation. Not only are we social, we're built, designed to live together. And family is the most basic unit of that, but also units like churches and organizations such as Rotary. And you see the other ones. Caring for creation, we have an obligation. This is what Francis focused on so much, to think about how we're good stewards to the earth. Paying particular attention to those who don't have the resources we do. rights and responsibilities. I love this one because young people are really good about telling you what their rights are, but not so quick to acknowledge their responsibilities. And then worker rights, as we already talked about. So the last thing I'll say is just a caution, which is that before he was Pope, Francis was not Francis. And it's a little bit of a joke, because literally, you take on a new name when you become Pope. But the similar thing can be said, before he was Pope, Leo XIV was not Leo XIV, he was Robert Prevost. So what will he do now that he's Leo XIV? I don't know. Nobody knows. There's a lot of speculation, and there are good sources we can draw on to imagine what that might be. But at the same time, nobody imagined that Jorge Bergoglio, which was Francis's name, would become the person that he did. So who knows what the Spirit will do? And who knows how Pope Leo will be the Pope for the next 15 or 20 years? We have some time for questions. Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
How is this he's going to be Pope Leo? Leo.
Oh yeah, good question. So how do they pick his name? Each person who gets to be elected, they're elected based on who they are. So he's elected because he's Cardinal Robert Prevost. But then after he's elected, he goes back in the room and they put the new clothes on him, literally, and they have small, medium, large. And it's his job to come up with his new name. And so the fact that he chose that name tells us that he had a particular affection for, or he wanted to highlight something. So that's why it's so interesting that he chose that name. He could have chosen any name in the world, but he chose Leo. And it, was an intention.
Do you think that Pope Leo would be progressive enough to pick women as deacons or allow for female priests?
Why don't you ask a hard question? That's a great question. And for those who are familiar with the Catholic community, the Catholic Church, this is a very live question. There was a series of synods over the last few years in which this question surfaced. The previous bishop of San Diego, Cardinal McElroy, he's come out very publicly and said that the church should ordain women as deacons. So I think there's a good chance. And it's not just because some would argue that that is the right thing to do, although that's a strong argument, but there's also a need. Many churches need people to serve in pastoral ministries. And that's especially true not just in the United States, but also in other parts of the world. So empowering lay people based on his experience studying with them seems like it would meet a need. And so I could definitely imagine Leo doing that. Now, whether or not to be a priest is another question for another set of reasons that we'll save for the next time I'm with you.
Just real quick, I want to bring up something about our Rotary Club. For those who are new, may not know, we had a most wonderful man named Chip Gary in our club. He went to Villanova, played football at Villanova. He was in an auto accident when he was 26 and became a quadriplegic. So he passed away now, a great member of our club. We actually formed a group to assist him called the Wildcat Express from Villanova. So for those that never knew Chip, God, he was fantastic. What a marvelous attitude. He got injured at 26, he lived to 62, and he lived his life full and was a great Rotarian. I got to throw that out, guys, so you remember. And thank you. You were wonderful, by the way. I loved your presentation.
Thank you so much for being here. That was very educational, and I cannot wait to watch Conclave, because I never have. I'm sure Dr. Lovette-Colyer, did I say that right, would be happy to stay for some more questions after the meeting. But as for now, everyone go out and have a great Rotary week.